Hay hutches are made by a highly specialised process called rotational moulding. This is undertaken for us by a firm just outside Birmingham. You start with a mould like this, which is for a medium hay hutch, and with powdered plastic. The plastic's white when it starts out and adopts its colour when it melts. The correct amount is measured out and placed inside the mould, which itself is placed onto a special rotating jig. The plan is that the powdered plastic will melt inside the mould and find itself coating the inside of a mould to make the correct thickness and an intricately shaped object like a hay hutch. The plastic is inside the mould, and so the workforce are now going to rotate the mould round and put the final part of the mould on, which is the lid, which the chap on the left is holding, and when that has been sealed down, the unit will be put inside the oven ready for the making process. This system was originally devised for making Easter eggs, and you can see that by having molten chocolate rolling around inside, you could make yourself a mighty monstrous Easter egg using a hay hutch mould. Computers decide the rotation and the time in the oven, and this has to be carefully set. So once the go button has been pressed, the rotation begins. The powder plastic's now rolling around inside the mould, and into the oven we go, where the plastic will then melt and like treacle creep round the inside of the mould, forming an even depth plastic inside. This process is particularly suited for creating objects that need to be highly durable, short in manufacturing run, and is nothing like popping out plastic toys, which often give people the impression that plastic must be a cheap substance. You'll notice that there's a lot of energy being expended here and an awful lot of manual labour. Now out of the oven and cooled down, the plastic has adopted the shape inside the mould, and the lid of a brand new hay hutch is visible here. The mould is in three parts to be able to get this intricate shape out. One half of what's left of the mould will stay on the jig, the other half, which is very heavy, will be released and lifted off with a winch. Once this is opened up, you will see the familiar shape of the hay hutch. It's the nature of rotational moulding to mould all the parts you require in one go and then chop them up afterwards as far as possible. So the lid is actually moulded intact to the body and has to be cut off at a separate point. So with a little bit of persuasion, the brand new hay hutch comes out and is ready now for being cut into the relevant pieces and having the holes drilled into it. Whilst the plastic's still warmish, a skilled operative will make the first cut, which is to remove the lid. So by doing so you end up with a familiar separate lid, which will need a bit of tidying up, but the technique of doing this saves plastic by moulding all the parts in one go. So now you can see it's a hollow object, of course, and that's been made by this molten plastic finding its way around the mould and then setting on the outside of the mould. The lugs to engage the lid are cut into the inside of the lid. The operative is actually following lines that are put into the mould, but even so it's skilled work to make sure it's dead right. He now tidies up a few burrs and untidy bits around the lid to make sure it's neat and fits properly. Now he has to put the actual apertures in the side through which the horses get the grub. These have to be individually measured and drawn before being cut, because the position of the holes varies slightly between medium and small. But either way, as you can see, the process has got to be described, I think, as handmade. Making a cake would require much the same input as making a hay hutch, except with a cake you usually only involve one person. So a jigsaw is used in a highly skilled manner to make sure those holes are as even as possible. All three of them are obviously cut out. This is pretty much the only bit of plastic waste which is collected up and recycled, just the holes. So not much is wasted in the manufacturing process, and most of the process is manual labour. Skilled manual labour operating in hot, quite noisy conditions. So once all three holes have been made, it's time to just go for the final deburring, making sure all the entrances are smooth, and once the job is all done, more final checking goes on to be sure the hay hutch is in good condition, ready to go to the customer. We dispatch them directly from the factory, again to save costs. We don't spend money on having warehouses, and the family-run business cooperates in this by making up the labels for the customers. So we concentrate on the marketing, which we enjoy, whilst the manufacturer does what he likes best, which is making the actual product. So there we are, have a brand new medium hay hutch ready to be dispatched, lids fits properly and ready to go.